Welcome to another edition of Question and Answer with a Criminal Defense Attorney. I'm Mark Solomon, a defense attorney in Denver, Colorado. And today's question, how can somebody be convicted of 3 different types of murder for the same person? But before we get to that, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos and the little bell next to it to be notified when I upload new videos. Convicted of 3 counts of charges for 1 offense. Now, if anybody's been watching national news, the Derek Chauvin murder trial concluded yesterday with the jury returning a guilty verdict on 3 different kinds of murder. How can that be? Now, I'm not a lawyer in Minnesota, so I won't talk about Minnesota law, but I will talk a little bit about Colorado law and how that applies. So, to talk about that, we need to understand what is a lesser included offense, because that's how you can be convicted of different types of charges for the same event. Let's look at what I put together here. So in other words, 2 different charges altogether. In other words, you could be convicted of burglary and theft, right? Burglary is not stealing. Burglary is breaking into a structure for the purposes of committing a crime. That other crime could be theft, or let's say assault and kidnapping. I hit the person and took them to another place. You could have different intent, but the same crime. So in other words, you could have a knowing or reckless crime, or you could have a negligent crime, and be convicted of both of those somehow. In other words, they could think that you had a duty to a person that you failed to uphold. That's negligent. Or it could be a knowing or reckless intent. You could be charged and convicted of both of those. Now, what I'm talking today about is the lesser included. So looking at that last definition, you can see that murder with the intent to cause death in Colorado is first-degree murder. When you actually try to kill somebody and you do it, that is first-degree murder. But if you knowingly cause the death of another person, let's say you didn't actually intend to kill them, but you did, that's second-degree murder. Could you be convicted of both? Yes. What about manslaughter? What if you recklessly cause the death of another person? In other words, you consciously disregard a substantial and unjustifiable risk that a result will occur, i.e. death, and that person does die. That's manslaughter. Could you be convicted of all 3 in Colorado? Juries don't necessarily have to be consistent. I can tell you that the penalty for first-degree murder is life imprisonment. Second-degree murder is less than that, and manslaughter less than that. Why would a jury do that? Well, let's say they believed that the person not only intended to cause the death, but they did it knowingly and recklessly. Is that consistent? Probably not. Is it upholdable on appeal? Probably. Okay, what does that mean, though? When you're convicted of all 3 things, it means that, in general, the lesser included. In other words, and I'm not going to go over the law that would apply to whether or not it's a lesser included or double jeopardy on separate different counts. It's a Blockberger test, whether one charge has all the elements of the other but is missing one. That would be a lesser included. Okay, if it has a different element than the other, then that would not be a lesser included at all. So when you're convicted of a charge and it's lesser included, that means that the jury has found guilt on both, or in this case, all 3 charges. How does that apply? Well, let's say Derek Chauvin goes to has an appeal. There are many appeal issues in his case. I'm not going to go over that, but let's just say one of his charges is overturned or reversed on appeal. The other charges could stand. So the appeal issues are what would rule here, but at the same time, you could be convicted. And here's the thing. If you are convicted of 2 different charges, one is the lesser of the other, the lesser included merges at sentencing. In other words, it merges, as in you're not sentenced on the lesser included, you're only sentenced on the more serious charge. And again, that would come into play on appeal. So that is the question and answer for today. If you have question you'd like to submit of your own, you can always put it in the comments, email me, or tag me on Twitter. And as always, you have a right to remain silent. If anybody asks you from the police department, if anybody asks you what you have, where you've been, or anything, you always have a right to say, I don't want to talk to you, or I want a lawyer.